Our Bible word is Luke 9 verses 23. Then he said to them all, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." So this is part of the triple tradition we encounter in the Gospels. This is material we find in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And of course, they treat material sometimes quite differently. For example, in Mark, this is quite a dramatic shift in the narrative. Jesus in Caesarea Philippi, and he asks the disciples who he is, and then he tells them he's the Messiah who must suffer and die. Peter argues with him, and then the suffering of Jesus starts. That's how Mark treats this material. Of course, Luke treats it somewhat differently, as we will see. But this is part of the triple tradition. And this is some of the 350 verses or so that Luke took from the Gospel of Mark. Now, for us to understand this pericope, and our pericope is in Luke 9 from verses 18 to 27. That is Peter's confession and the nature of discipleship. To understand this pericope better, we must also look at some important values and cultural traditions, or the ethos that existed in the world of Jesus in the first century. First, it's honor and shame. Honor and shame were very important values in the ancient Mediterranean world. And to have honor meant that you had a certain social standing or worth in society, and also having that claim acknowledged by society. So it's something more beyond your reputation. If you came from a particular family, you had an inherent worth, social standing, an honor or honor rating in the ancient world. And quite often, honor was rooted in your family. You got your honor from your family. It was also rooted in the wealth of that family. I mean, most people, they wouldn't have been rich, but their honor they would have garnered from their lineage, their father's lineage, going back to his father and his father, etc. Of course, in the Israelite tradition, your honor was also rooted in your obedience to the law. You would have been an honorable person if you obeyed the law. So honor was rooted in those three things for people in the first century: family, wealth, and obedience to the law. And also, to be in a state of shame, that would mean that you lack or you lose honor. You had to make sure that you preserve your family honor, that you promote your family honor, that you behave appropriately, etc. And of course, loss of honor could also be rooted in the loss of your family wealth. And there were many people who lost their family wealth because they lost their land through debt, etc. But remember this: whenever you read the Bible or the New Testament, honor and shame, it's always there in the background somewhere. When the people come and they challenge Jesus, they try to put him in a corner, is to try for them to diminish the honor of Jesus and to increase their own honor as teachers amongst Israelites or the Jewish people. So remember this pivotal value of honor and shame that existed in the time of Jesus. There's another thing we must remember. It's the notion that's called collectivism. And this is another important feature of the world of Jesus. And opposed to Western individualism, collectivists are group-orientated persons. And this is where you regard the group you belong to as the primary point of reference. And it's more important than the concerns, preferences, or self-expressions of the individual. So in other words, in a collectivist society, people see themselves through the eyes of others. I'm not a self-made person. I cannot just give my own opinion. I cannot just be who I want to be in a collectivist society. I must represent the values and ethos of the community I belong to. And that's still for 70% of the world's population today. People of Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and other parts of the world. I must belong to my group. I must represent the group. I'm not an individual. I'm an individual, yeah, but part of a bigger group. And it's the group opinion that's important. It's the group that validates me. It's the group that gives me my identity. It's a group that determines my honor. It's a group that determines my values and ethos. It's not about me, the individual, saying just what I want or believing what I want. That's not how it works in collectivist societies. If you behave like that, like a typical Westerner today, and you behave like that in a collectivist society, those people will think you're mad. You're a dysfunctional human being. That's not the way you ought to behave. So this is the way it was back in the world of Jesus. It's the group is your primary focus of loyalty. It's this group that sets the standards for acceptable behavior and appropriate action. And the group that you belong to was your family. It could be your village. It could be your ethnic group that you belong to, etc. But really, it's not about you so much as the individual. It's the group that's important. And I'm part of the group. And that's the frame of reference where I get my identity from. So, when we read this passage, remember these two things: honor and shame and collectivism. So Jesus, he was busy praying. And the Gospel of Luke puts a lot of emphasis on the prayer life of Jesus. Luke often describes Jesus that he's alone or praying, etc. So while he was busy praying, his disciples joined him, and then Jesus also asks them, "Who do the crowd say that I am?" So they say, well, maybe you're John the Baptist, some say you're Elijah, or one of the old prophets that has risen again. So it's not entirely inaccurate to say that Jesus was a prophet. Luke presents Jesus as a prophet. But it's not accurate. It's not the full picture. So that's why Jesus asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" And then Peter answered and said, "The Christ of God." In other words, the Messiah or the anointed one of God. And this is the first time in the gospel that a human being acknowledges Jesus as the Messiah. The demons know it, angels know it, God knows it, but here for the first time there's a human being that acknowledges Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, or the anointed one. But now comes another important thing for Luke. So you know that Jesus is the Messiah. Okay, that's good, but it's inseparable from discipleship. You cannot just say Jesus is Messiah and it's something separate from how you follow him. Because if you acknowledge Jesus as the Messiah, it's part and parcel of your discipleship, of how you follow Jesus. You acknowledge Jesus as Messiah, at the same time that also affects how you follow him and how you understand what following him means. So that's very important for Luke also to bring those two together. So, understanding Jesus as a prophet is okay. Then Peter recognizes now, the first human being to do so, you the Christ or the Messiah. Now Jesus also redefines the role of the Messiah. So Peter's correct. Jesus is the Christ. But now Jesus must also instruct Peter, this is what it means to be the Messiah. Just before our Bible word, it says, "The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and be raised the third day." So Jesus gives a radical reinterpretation of what it means to be the Messiah. The Messiah will be put to death by the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem. The Messiah will not come and conquer the enemies and beat the Romans. He won't be a warrior king. He's going to come and be humiliated and defeated. So Jesus explains to Peter, you're right, I'm the Messiah, but I'm a suffering Messiah. I'm not the Messiah that you're expecting. Now we come to our Bible word. Then he said to them all, "If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." So Jesus says, okay, you recognize me as Messiah, as the Christ. That means you must deny yourself. So it's not really about the way we understand it in individualistic terms. I must deny my opinion, my own rights, me and my special privileges as an individual, like we understand it in the Western world today. To deny yourself in the ancient world meant to give up your honor status within the community. The way that other people see you, the community you belong to, your social relationships, your wealth that's connected to your honor status. Give that up. So Jesus is saying you must take on a position that is socially dishonorable. You must be willing that if you follow me, to be ostracized, to be rejected by others. And this metaphorically is to every day pick up your cross. It's to live every day as if you are going to be killed by crucifixion. So one must live daily life as if you are sentenced to death by crucifixion. And yet it's a metaphor also for ostracism, to be rejected by your family. To deny yourself means give up your honor status the way that other people see you, that you are an honorable person, that you abide by what's the expected norm, the expected values, the expected teachings, etc. that exist around you. Because the next verses Jesus says, if you're ashamed of me, if you cannot give up that other regard people have for you, if you cannot give up your wealth, if you cannot give up that sense of you must always represent the group values and norms of your larger society you belong to. If you cannot give that up and you're ashamed of Jesus, Jesus says, I will also be ashamed of you when he comes. So remember this. This is about honor and shame. It's about collectivism. It's about the group you belong to. Because it's in that world, it was the group who gave you your worth, your social standing, your honor. Jesus says, you must be willing to give that up if you come after me and follow after me. Of course, Jesus is a person with the most honor. He's the Son of God. And if he comes and you acknowledge him, the most honorable person in the world will also give you honor. When he comes in the power or the glory of God and the glory of angels. Remember, at this time, glory and honor were words that were virtually synonymous in meaning. So Jesus will come with glory. He will come with honor. And he will vindicate you if others have ostracized you and thought that you are dishonorable, etc. But Jesus will give you honor. And then the next verse, Jesus also tells them, some of you will see my honor. Some of you will see my glory, in other words. And that's the transfiguration of Jesus that happens from verses 28 to 36. So Jesus is telling us here, through Luke, you acknowledge Jesus as the Messiah. That's good. But now what's also important is how you follow Jesus. The nature of that discipleship, what it means. It means to embrace a socially dishonorable status where other people reject your worth, your honor. They don't see you as an honorable person. You can also lose your wealth because wealth was rooted in family, whatever little wealth there was. So Jesus says you must be willing to give that up and to be socially ostracized if you want to follow me, because it's going to happen. Deny yourself. That meant deny what other people think of you, the honor rating that other people give you. And it could mean a life of suffering, a life that's difficult because you've lost your social security. You've lost your economic security. You're now vulnerable. It's a difficult position to be in. That's why Jesus uses the metaphor, pick up your cross. It's a life of suffering. It's like dying daily going to a place of execution. So following Jesus will be a difficult thing. And especially it was at this time. Even for people today who come to Jesus, they often experience rejection from their families and they ostracized from their communities. It was also like this at the time of Jesus.